Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jacob Löwenbrand, and I am moderating this webinar today here that we're happy to have. We are looking forward to learn about best practices, trend, and insights concerning effective board work. And the webinar, as you can see, has the title Increased Efficiency in Board Work today. I hope you are eager to learn more about this as I am. We have two great speakers with us today. We have one of the speakers is Sophie Persson, who is a board professional since 7-8 years back, and is today chairman of a number of companies like North Chemical, listed on the Nasdaq exchange in Sweden, as well as Munkeby Systems and other companies as well. I say welcome to you, Sophie.
Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to hear more about your experiences. And I will also welcome Fredrik Wingren, who will be speaking with us today as well about effective board work. Fredrik is the regional manager of Diligent, a board portal specialist company, helping companies be more effective in the board work and have a long career in different managerial roles, especially in finance industries. I say a great welcome to you as well, Fredrik.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Looking forward to an interesting webinar.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. We are also a few housekeeping things to keep in mind for today's webinar, and then I will let Sophie take over here. But we will have a poll during the webinar today, and you will get a question you can answer later on. You will see that, so please answer the question later on so you can participate in the poll. You will also get a recorded version of the webinar already tomorrow, so that can be good to bear in mind, so you don't have to write notes if you don't want to, but that could be good as well. And also, if you want to ask any questions during the webinar, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So please fill out questions in the fields to the right in the webinar software under questions, so we can address those at the later stage of the webinar. We have an agenda for today. We will, after my introduction here, have a speak of with Sophie Persson about value creating board work, and then Fredrik will talk with us about the digitalization of board work, and then our Q&A session at the end. So that is today's agenda in short. So with that, I say the floor is yours, Sophie, and looking forward to hear about your insights and learnings about effective and efficient board work.
Thank you very much, Jacob. I usually don't sound like a chain-smoking, whiskey-drinking woman from the south of Sweden. I hope that you won't have a problem understanding me, as my voice is quite bad today. I'll take it slow, and if I need to cough or something, I hope that Fredrik and Jacob can just fill in.
Absolutely.
My name is Sophie. Good. My name is Sophie Pearson, and as Jacob said, since 7 years plus, I've been working solely with corporate governance and board assignments, board training in different countries, primarily in Scandinavia, though. Once upon a time, I was given birth by two entrepreneurs, and I studied abroad and worked abroad in CEO positions in different industries. So half of my working life in an international environment. I actually moved to Brussels long before Sweden even was part of the European Union. Then it was called actually the European Community. So for all of you interested in the Brexit happenings, I can tell you all about how it is to be a citizen abroad and not being part of the European Union. The other half of my working life, I've been working or at least living in Sweden and Scandinavia. So today I run a company called Agent A. Let's see if we can get the next picture. Advanced board development. And as Jacob said, I have a number of board assignments, some of them as chairman and others as director, ranging from public companies traded on the Nasdaq exchange and smaller owner-based companies, but also financial institutions, state-owned companies. My work is focused on getting the dynamics right in the boardroom, and when I serve as a director for different companies, that's what I try my best to add. But I also train directors in the practicalities of what actually happens in the boardroom, and as a finally also as a third-party advisor to owners and boards on which I do not serve, then on strategy and value creation in the boardroom. So being a boardroom and corporate governance nerd, of course I've also written a book on the subject, and my book still only in Swedish, but you never know, might actually be published in English one day, or a version of it. Is all about the practice in the boardroom, what actually happens and what we actually do as directors when we create value. So it's focused on board training and the realities of the boardroom. I wrote it because I found that there was very little literature about what actually happens in the boardroom, but a lot of literature on the black and whites of the different roles and the legislative background that you need to know, and company law, for example. But then much too little about what we actually do in the boardroom to get the dynamics right and create value, really hardcore value in the companies that we represent. So the book is divided into three sections: the changing role of the chairman, and dilemmas and cases that have actually happened, because I find that the best way for us to be really well trained as directors is to work with real life cases and practice how we actually deal with those situations, because when the shit hits the fan, we need to be really well trained and prepared as directors, because sooner or later we will have some sort of crisis that arises from what happens in our industry or globally, or as in Europe right now with immigrant flows as well as Brexit effects, and then we have very little time if we then have to say, right, let's get our act together and get the basics of good board work and corporate governance in place. So get well trained before it actually, before the shit actually hits the fan, which could actually be that you grow very fast as well. It's a similar situation in the boardroom when you have vast, immense growth. It's a chaos-like situation, also similar to capital restraints, for example. So it's easy in theory, but tough in reality. So the different questions that we deal with in the boardroom is dealt with in the book as well. It's very often not black or white. It's different shades of grey. And in the dilemmas that we have, we choose between the devil and the deep blue sea, or heaven and nirvana. So what are we actually set to do in as directors? Well, if we look at the word director and focus on the part that says direct, our main task, or most important task, is to set the direction of the company. And of course the big question in that is towards what? So the strategy and the strategic intention is one of the primary functions of the board if we want to create value, which I hope all of you want to do as directors. Because we need to answer the question for the company that we're representing. How do we increase the value of the company in the short term as well as the long term sustainably? That's what corporations are set to do. We should spend about 85% of our time here. And of course, these questions don't always have clear-cut answers, but we need to discuss and we need to get facts on the table, of course, but we also need to, since we're looking at the future and a future state, we cannot always be, or never, rather 100% sure that what we think will happen will actually happen. So the dynamics in that process is very important. We're there to create results, to create cash flows, at least if we're in companies. If our role is to direct the company towards something, what are the other roles that we have around us? And can we just spend a moment on being clear on the different roles and what functions they have? What are the key roles in governing a company? Well, we have the owners, and I'll show you a few circles here, and the board of directors, of course. We have the CEO or the executive management, and we have the auditors. Of course, this can differ. What the functions are and what the different mandates and roles can differ a bit, depending on if we're in the Nordic countries and have the Nordic corporate governance model, or the Anglo-Saxon or the German, for example, if we look at Europe alone. But more or less we have these four roles that we, in different ways, need to interact to safeguard the governance of our companies in creating both long-term and short-term value. And if we look at literature, when we go to different board education, we often learn about these roles as separate functions. But in reality, more often than not, they're not separate roles, and that's why I have the numbers here ranging from 1 to 7. So owners are often also on the board of directors or even in the executive management as CEOs. For example, we have Elon Musk right now. He's the CEO of Tesla, as you all know, but he's also an owner and on the board of directors. And you might have heard just last week that Tesla is now bidding to acquire Solar City, where Elon Musk is actually the chairman. In Sweden, we have Carl Persson, the CEO of H&M, the international retail fashion store, who also is an owner and on the board of directors. So is it a problem? And I say, no, it's not a problem, as long as you remember what role you're in that particular situation, what function you have and what mandate you have. So you actually remember what hat are you wearing right there and then. To have owner discussions in the boardroom is futile. It never leads to efficient, good board work. And as well as getting the operational issues, of course, into the boardroom. Be very clear about which role has which responsibility. And just a note on the auditor circle, it overlaps both the owner and the executive management. And just to be clear on that, the owners are the ones appointing the auditors. But I meet quite a lot of CEOs who actually think that the auditors are their best friend because the CEOs and the executive management are the ones who spend the most time with the auditors. However, we need to remember that the auditors are there to review us and the executive management, the CEO, and make sure that we're doing our jobs in a proper way, according to the legislation, of course, and the policies. So remember which hat you wear. If you have double or even triple roles, then it can actually work very well. This is not a question of size of the company. The two companies I mentioned, Tesla and H&M, they're both multinational companies. They don't need to be small family companies to be a 7. So same thing here. Make sure that you are well trained and in good shape for the role of being a director and setting the strategic direction of the company. Then you are a lot better off when things happen in your surroundings or of course within the company. So to describe this, because the strategic journey that we then in the board of directors have the responsibility to set for the company. There's a lot of discussions since a few years within the professional board director community about the lack that directors don't have enough strategic competence so this is really a key issue, because as I said, you should spend about 85% of the board meetings on the strategic issues. I would like to show you this picture just to point out the link between strategy and performance indicators, because it becomes a railing when things happen and you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. The strategy is actually the railing that you keep holding on to. So if we have a present state right now, let's say 2016, and we look at we want to go somewhere better, the future state, call it the goal, the vision, the owner's directives, whatever. And we see that, right, there's a gap here between where we are and where we want to go. So we set out on a journey, and that journey is the strategy as such. It's actually the action. So do not confuse the strategy, i.e. how we're going to win the war, with the goal and the future state as such, or the vision, the owner's directive. When we set out this journey, we say, right, we have a gap, we need to do something differently with our resources and ourselves to get to the future state. We usually then set the plan, the strategy, and do it in steps. And these steps, we also then follow up with different performance indicators or KPIs or whatever you call them in your organization. And these indicators, again, not to be confused with the goal as such, these indicators should indicate to us, are we on the right track? Do we have, is our pace the one we want? Is it too fast or too slow, for example? And these indicators then is a key tool for us in the board of directors. So we have our evaluation and follow-up. If we can click and see the arrows. In the boardroom, we then evaluate and follow up. If we set the strategy, we have the performance indicators of where we want to, what actions we actually want to do to trigger that we get to the goal and the future state. Then the KPIs and the key performance indicators becomes our railing in the board work, which keeps us from getting involved in the operational work, which is the responsibility of the CEO and the executive management. So being clear on that this is the strategy, the strategic journey that we set for the company, that our role in the board is to set that overall overriding strategic journey, and then of course review it continuously, because as things happen we have a plan, and it's always easier to have a plan to make deviations from it, because things happen around us. As I said, we have several happenings around us in Europe right now, never mind all the international developments that we see that affects all of our companies, because within the information age that we live today, we have a lot of, even if you're a small company in the north of Sweden, for example, you're subject to the changes that happen globally, and we need to be aware of that in the boardroom. So to make this journey as successful as possible, the board needs to be aware that the red thread through it all, from owners to employees and their daily actions, is as clear as possible, because it gives us better odds to reach the future state, the place where we want to be. So just to show you how this red thread sort of keeps it all together, if we look at the next picture, you will recognize the you will probably you have the owners and some misspelling there with owners directive. The key documentation of the owners is the owners directive. The owners directive is not always written. If it's not, it still exists. All owners have some sort of intention with the investment that they made in a company. For some, it's only to have some sort of cash return. For others, it might be other things. So the key document for owners is the owner's directive. It sets out what the owners would like to achieve with their ownership. And the forum that the owners have is the general shareholders meeting, where they make some key decisions like appointing the board, for example. So if we look at the board of directors then, and I'll be using different terms here just to depict to you the different levels. The key document for the board of directors is the strategy, and strategy, of course, the word we use in everything from personal branding strategy to data place strategy and whatever strategy. Here, as I said, I'm using the strategy word as to explain how the red thread runs through from owners to the daily business. And the forum for us and the board of directors are the board meetings. And if we look at the CEO and management, I should mention that the strategy and the board of directors have two dimensions. One is the business strategy, which is depicted in the previous picture, going from 2016 to 2021. The corporate strategy is also part of the responsibility of the board of directors, but the executive management and the CEO is not always involved for motivational reasons, basically. The corporate strategy involves, for example, doing an IPO, or exits, a big merger, for example, or any other on a corporate level strategy-related issue. So on the CEO management level, we have the business plan then, again, using the different concepts just to separate them. The business plan then being, of course, more detailed and operational, and the forum that the CEO and the management has are the different management meetings that they hold. And then going to the business as such, the operations and the employees, where we have the action plans. The action plans, of course, everything from on department levels, functions, positionings, brands, and so on, but also on an individual action plan level. And we have tons of meetings within and without the corporations where we make decisions on what we're going to do. And not to be confused for anyone working on a board level, or for that matter on the CEO owner level, the result is always created on the operational, on the employee level. It's what individuals in our corporations do every day that eventually creates the result that we want to achieve in the overall strategy. So what happens on a daily basis in actions today is creating the company we would like to have in 2021. We need to remember that all the time in the board of directors. So the red thread is really the owner directives, is the assignment that the owners give to the board of directors. If we can show the next arrow, just And the strategy is the task given from the board of directors to the CEO to implement, and likewise the business plan then is the assignment to the different leaders and managers, of course. And if we look at this is the red thread, the more clear it is, the better it is. It limits confusion, and we get more prepared for then, if something happens, alter the strategic journey. The owner's directive is might be on a eternity basis, like we will never achieve that actual goal. More often nowadays, it's about 10-15 years ahead. What the owners would like to achieve within 10 years. And the strategy, we're talking more 3 to 5 years nowadays. This has changed a lot, and it's of course dependent on which industry you're operating in. Some gamification companies, app developers, for example, are working on a quarterly basis instead of 3 years. But we rather most companies work with 3-year strategic plans today. And on a business plan level, we usually have 12 to 18 months, more often 12 months, and we're following the fiscal year more or less, which is a bit of the problem. So try to think on a more perpetual 12-month basis. And as I said, the action plans are the daily business in the operations and the employee on the creating the best company you can every day. So summarizing this, the board's role in strategy development, if we go to the next picture, is to be part of developing the strategy together with the CEO and management, of course, then monitor the strategic implementation and evaluate the strategy and the strategic outcome. Easy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great insights there about that, Sophie. Yeah. Thank you for that. So board work, both and, what do you mean with that?
Yeah, well, taking into consideration all of these things that I've tried to talk about in this hoarse voice, hence today's board work is rather of a both-and character. Because if we look at the more traditional board work, we first of all have the you can show the first circle there, the administrative board work, where we make sure all the key documents are in place, the agendas, the minutes, the board job description, the strategic plan, CEO instructions, and so on, so that somebody else can actually follow how our work has been done. And then we also have the reviewing and controlling board work, which is about 15% of what we do in the boardroom, where we make sure that the taxes are paid, the policies are followed, the attestation rights work, the legal framework, the stock exchange framework, and so on. And finally, we have the entrepreneurial and business development related board work, that's where we actually create the value in the company and how we get from 2016 till 2021. So today we can't choose one of these three. We need to do it all because there's so many things happening in our companies. So from a board point of view, we work with both strategic and controlling board work, which is, of course, making board work a little bit more complicated. But in essence, which I think Fredrik will also talk about, it makes it of the essence that the directors, that we are always well prepared. We have access to the right documents. We are updated continuously about the business and the industry in such a way that we keep sight of our main task, that we have access to the basic key documents of the board work, for example. We also need to be aware that with the dynamics that we need in the boardroom, with a heterogeneous group, a high-performing team, we cannot meet all the time. So we also need to make sure that we have ways of meeting up. For example, if we're acquiring a company or being acquired or going on the stock exchange in an IPO, we will have to meet, have board meetings, maybe several times a week on the phone or via the web or virtually or even via some sort of portal or email. So digitalization has, from a tool point of view, in creating value in the boardroom, I think we have great opportunities in making sure that we're all well prepared. We can focus the minimum, the amount of time we have together in the boardroom on discussions and making really good decisions, which is one of our main tasks.
Okay.
And I think that was basically what I wanted to
yeah. Thank you so much.
Say.
Great insights, and really interesting to hear about the strategic work of the importance of the strategic work of the board and how to implement that together with the operational work in companies. And we will now leave over for Fredrik. Fredrik, you will take this, the ending of Sophie's message here, how digitalization and keeping everything in order, and look at that insights with the digitalization of board work, Fredrik. Please
yes, I will try. I will try my best to succeed in that, and I of course find a lot of the statements from Sophie being very accurate in the sense that it's not only an administrative work that's involved in being a board member and doing the reviews and doing the control. You're always also in control and are expected to be involved in the strategic and visionary work, and of course constructing different KPIs and doing follow-up is a lot easier if you have the right tools to access. My name is Fredrik Wingren. I am the regional director for Dizard Boards in the Nordics, and I am here today to talk about how a digital tool can actually help you in your everyday job as being a board member, but also what can be, how valuable it can be in an extraordinary situation, as we have come to learn is the case on a, I wouldn't say daily basis, but extraordinary situations do happen the more connected and intertwined we are around the globe. So could you move to the next slide, please, Jacob? We'll go through quickly how to actually review and navigate through materials that are distributed, what capabilities for global interaction a board portal actually gives you, how it can be used when it comes to incident management, and also what would happen if we were to have to make an extraordinary board meeting. How can you distribute your information quickly using a board portal? But first of all, I would actually like to go to the next slide and ask you all a question. And that is, how are your documents, board documents, currently distributed? Do you print them out now and distribute them through couriers? Or do you use a PDF solution and mail them out? Maybe you have a Dropbox, SharePoint, something other when it comes to file sharing system. Or maybe you have actually developed something in-house. Or you're already using a board portal today. So I'll just wait a while for the answers to come through, and we'll see the results coming up on your screen, I think, pretty briefly. It's always interesting to see which is the case when it comes to which method you are using. Of course, this can differ between different regions, and I'd say we come pretty far actually in the Nordics. So today we have a lot of people actually printing their documents conservatively, and of course a lot of people use PDFs and distribute them through email. One thing that we hope to show today is actually the answer there that comes up 0%, the effectiveness of actually using a digital tool as a board portal. So if I can just move to the next slide, please.
Can I just add a short anecdote?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Because in the professional board director community, we always joke about, because it's been a tradition for ages and ages, that you come into the boardroom and somebody always open up the envelope with the material and the documents that have been, when we used to distribute them by mail, open them up in the meeting and saying, right, what's on the agenda today?
Yeah, well, that's actually a perfect statement.
It's not a good platform for good informed decisions when you have 3.5 hours meeting up
and of course
directors.
What you risk to come into is actually just discussing more administrative issues, and of course discussing the material itself, because if you're reading parallel to making informed decisions, well, you can't really make informed decisions when you're not informed. So, well, that's fascinating and maybe also a bit disturbing to hear. But
it's terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
Our task is to get the best conditions for the company to deliver and create value. That's not the way to do it, I think.
No, absolutely, I agree. And also, of course, as this slide points out, a lot of internal departments have really worked hard to put this material in front of the board members in due time, making their reports all the way down from sales representative to making phone calls, following prospects, doing deals, and reporting them up to sales departments, marketing, doing lead generation, finance, setting up credit limits, etc., IT, doing investments in IT infrastructure. And what they usually do, of course, is that they report this in using Excel, Word documents, PDFs, PowerPoints, to some kind of a central body as an administrator or a head of legal. And of course, these persons or this person puts together the material and always tries to distribute them in a timely and orderly fashion. We often come across, when we see head of legals or board secretaries, that people complain on actually the finance department being rather late with the numbers, and that's always something that could be helped if you have a nice distribution model to always know that you can distribute things very fast. So this is the typical process, but in this day, and also connecting to what Sophie was speaking about, when extraordinary things happen, for instance, if you just pull up, for instance, horrible terrorist attacks, you have examples of banks crashing. A couple of years ago, you have the Icelandic volcano. Now we, of course, think of something more happy, given the success from the Icelandic football team now in the Euros. But that really sets things aside for a while when it comes to traveling and really getting to board meetings, for instance, by plane. And the last slide, I think, will pop up as being, of course, the topic of the day, as Sophie was discussing also, Brexit. And of course, in the Nordics, we're a lot of small countries put together. We're very dependent on our exports, and UK is a major market for us. So that's, of course, a lot of questions. So if you just give us the last click on that, we'll actually have a citation mark of the typical process, not being so typical. But what I'd like you to show is if I could actually get access to the screen, is how one could work in a board portal. And what you see now is actually my iPad and what the board portal actually looks like for a director signing in. And of course you have a personal login. And nowadays, being very modern, we also can use biometrics, so you could actually use your thumbprint. That's one of the most newest features when it comes also to enhancing security. We have this code obfuscations now, and of course, when you check in, you always get to know what's new within Dizard Boards. I'll just press OK there, and hopefully you'll see my screen showing more than one company, because of course, as Sophie, a lot of directors choose to sit in more than one board, and if you're involved in different companies, you can have all those companies set up within the same platform. So I'll just check into Alpha board here, the board of Alpha, and I'll see actually the whole setup of this board portal. And of course, as Sophie pointed out, you can use this in all kinds of situations when it comes to following up on strategy, when it comes to following up on KPIs, but it's always nice to have all resources at your fingertips. And if you're in different committees, or if you're in audit committee or executive committee, you can set up the portal so it reflects the organization chart of your company. If you're a pharmaceutical company, maybe you will have a research committee, for instance. The setup of the board portal, if you look here, I just pressed over here, my top left, you can actually see where you have access to all current materials. You can actually import all old books. If you have a lot of archives where it's a lot of board materials, you can have access to that. There's something interesting I'd like to look into. It's actually called the Resource Center, where you could have all those information that Sophie was speaking about when it comes to company data, the different reports, company documents, and you can go in and you can actually see here in a corporate governance setup, and you can make notes in this one, and you can actually go in, get your pen out, and review this. Circle anything you would like. You could do highlights within this document. And of course, if you're doing a review and if you would like to really come prepared to a meeting and discuss this with your colleagues in advance, this is a very nice tool, because you can always distribute anything here using email or print it out. Usually you should use email. Or you could actually, which I'm going to show you later on, share these notes with your colleagues and coworkers. So if I'm just going to press there, I'm going to go back to documents and go back to the setup of the portal and actually view the contact center here. And the reason I wanted to review that is just to see that you have all the information regarding your colleagues, and it's very easy to email them directly from the system. So you can email anyone sitting on a specific committee. And of course, if you would like to, you could go into your own feature or profile and actually edit it. And you could capture your signature on here. And in a situation where you will have to make, for instance, votes, and if you're situated in a different location, this could be a very valuable thing. So you could do e-signatures on documents and agreements and votes. You have a calendar function and questionnaires. But let's just go into this current book and see what it looks like to review. And here, as it is an iPad, I can actually switch the screens here, and it will change from horizontal to landscape. If I touch on the side here, It actually flips through like a book. I can zoom in and zoom out. And of course, I can see also, if I push here, I can see the total structure of the book coming out. So I can see and navigate very, very easily. And if my chairman, for instance, says move to page 44, I could do that very easily. And as I shown you in the resource center, I can make any types of notes here. I can do any types of highlighting. And to really show you how collaborative this can be, I could actually use this note for saying a specific message, and more elaborate one by using a sticky note. So I could say income statements. You should be able to spell also, that's good. Should be revised, for instance. And of course I can just save this, or I could actually show and just keep it private, or I could publish it to everyone on my board, or share it with specific users, like for instance James or Sarah. And what they will receive is an exact copy of this note within their material. And just to touch back on what Sophie was talking about, this actually makes for a lot more dynamic process, and you can actually come very prepared, and you can discuss a lot of these administrative smaller issues already from the get-go. They will be cleared out of your schedule because you've discussed them prior to the meeting. So that's very nice feature. And of course, just quickly, I'll go through how to actually make a vote here. Go to the signature page of this vote, and I can actually tap on that one. I can vote for, against, abstain. And what will happen then when I confirm my vote for, I will actually get that copy of my signature with a date sign and a timestamp. So that's also a very effective way. If we look on the other side of this issue, we actually have the possibility of looking into what would happen if we had to distribute something. If you have an extraordinary event and you, for instance, would like to have an extra board meeting, you could actually go in here, and this is what I would like to call the administrative view, because first I showed you the iPad, and that's actually where the board members will be, the board of directors will have that view. But for anyone working with the distribution of the material, this is what he or she's screen will look like. So I'll just right click here. I will choose to create a book from scratch, and I will actually have this meeting set for tomorrow, and I will call it extra board meeting, and I will press OK. And I have received a lot of materials from different departments, as I was talking about, like CFO reports, it's Excel sheets, it's pictures, it's PDFs, etc. It's a CEO report about this special situation. And what I'll do is I'll just take this whole folder, drag it and drop it, and I will get up instantly the full feature and structure of the meeting. You can press import there. And this will actually encrypt all the information from your desktop up to our servers. So this makes for totally encrypted documents, and no one can access them. Only the people that sit on these different committees. And of course, when it goes up to 50%, I could actually collapse my tabs and see to it that the structure is correct. So the minutes here been off, but it's the same easy drag and drop feature that makes it possible to rearrange there. And if for some reason I would like to actually hide something for one of my directors, since maybe it's bias or it's something that has to do with remuneration, I could actually do not allow specified users to see this document. For instance, James Smith there, and he will not see this document. I will just go to publish this one. Actually, just making it okay to publish, approve the total entire book here. This area will actually go from being red into black, and you will see that this is ready for publication. I will go and change the status of the book from not viewable on director's site to being actually viewable on director's site. And if we move back here to our mirroring of the screen here, if we check for any updates, we actually have an extra board meeting set up here. So it's very easy to distribute in all kinds of special situations, if it's an M&A process or if it has anything to do with, for instance, a situation which I hadn't thought about, Brexit, for instance. So I think that was all I had to say from this screen. If we could just go back quickly to the PowerPoint.
Absolutely. Let's go back here.
I just try to show you how to really control distribution more tightly and how to navigate and find information quickly, actually how to interact, also sharing notes and working globally, sharing updates and how to act in an extraordinary situation. If you move to the next slide, for those who are not familiar with exactly who Diligent Boards are, we are the largest board portal provider in the world. We actually service over 140,000 board members, executives, and administrators in over 72 countries. So it's a truly global company. We have offices worldwide, 12 different locations, and of course I reside in Stockholm and cover the Nordics. So if anyone has any specific questions later on about board portals, I will be, of course, happy to respond to them. I think we have one last slide there also, Jacob.
Yeah, that was question.
The question slide. Have we received any questions?
Absolutely. We have a few minutes left for questions here, and we have one question here for you, and it's a very practical question. Should the CEO be on the board? Whoever of you is inclined to answer is happy to do so.
I think Sophie is better to answer it, actually.
No, I don't think the CEO should be on the board. Actually, if we take the example from Sweden, for example, we have a code of conduct which is related to quoted companies, which is sort of set trends for the other 94.5% of the companies in Sweden, where the advice is very clear: do not have the CEO on the board of directors. And it's a practical issue, actually, because the board of directors, one of our tasks is to appoint, of course, and dismiss the CEO. And if you're a director, you're actually you have a conflict of interest, of course, but it might be quite difficult to review, of course, the performance, for example, of the CEO. And it's also a question of information flow. It might be that some information is not appropriate for the CEO to have, or the timing is not right for the CEO to be involved. So back to the different roles, basically.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sophie. Sounds clear and logical. Another question there is, do you see any differences between board work in the Nordic countries? Is there a local difference in culture and board work?
Is it me again, Sophie?
Yeah, Sophie, Yeah, I can. Let's hear Fredrik as well, but you can start, Sophie.
Yeah, because I think Fredrik can also see even on a statistic level, really, the differences. But from my point of view, I can say yes, there is a difference, and there are two main factors, if you like, that are different. One is, of course, the legal frameworks, because we don't have identical corporate governance models around the globe. We have similarities in some countries, like the Scandinavian countries have what is commonly called the Nordic corporate governance model. We talk about the Anglo-Saxon corporate governance model, where the States and the UK has a similar way. We talk about the German two-tier system, which is also then adopted. But we have the rest of the world. We have in Japan, they're currently developing the framework for how they think is best. In China as well, lots of a mix of experiences from different parts of different corporate governance models, where they try to create sort of their way of forming a good value-creating board of directors work in corporate governance, of course. The difficulty with these projects, if you like, where like within the EU, trying to find some sort of EU corporate governance model, is that the ownership structures are very different in different parts of the world. Just a simple comparison between England and Sweden, for example. In Sweden, the owners are, well, let's say 2/3 of the quoted companies, or even more, 80%, on the stock exchange can actually be in one way or another linked to two major owner spheres in Sweden. But in England, the ownership structure is rather lots and lots, thousands of anonymous small owners that own, for example, quoted companies. So of course the legal framework and the rules and regulations then need to be different. So that's one point. The other part is, of course, cultural differences. But looking at that, I think that the real thing in the board of directors, in the boardroom, is to create dynamics between different types of personalities, if you like, or behaviors, communication styles, experiences, and so on. So, and that mix, if you have 5 to 8 people that are of a great mix, a heterogeneous group, you're going to get the same dynamics. It's not really about national culture or anything else, but dynamics is really what we need to get into the boardroom to get, in a short time frame, get optimal decisions. Long answer, but very important question.
Absolutely. Fredrik, do you have any more to complement that answer with? Fredrik?
He's not even there.
I couldn't say that I'm really an expert when it comes to differences between the Nordics. What I can say that sets the Nordics apart is actually how digital the region actually is, and of course you have some things setting Norwegian corporate governance apart, where you actually have laws stating how many when it comes to gender equality, it's actually legislated in there. And also I know a lot of Norwegian directors complain about how the remuneration works when it comes to board work. It's not a career in the same way that it is, for instance, in Denmark, where actually you could be professional director and make a good livelihood out of that with not so many seats. So that's comments that I usually come across when we do these networking events on a Nordic level, and also of course the special laws when it comes to who actually sets the nomination committee within the Swedish legislation. That's also a specific point where it doesn't work the same. Who gets nominated and who actually nominates the members of the nomination committee.
Great, thanks for those insights. We could go on here and discuss those interesting topics all day, I think. But the time is unfortunately up, and we need to end this webinar. And I would advise everyone with more questions to contact directly Sophie Persson or Fredrik Wingren and continue the dialogue by email or phone or on Skype or social media, where you find them easily as well. And with that, I also would like to thank you, Sophie and Fredrik, very much for those interesting topics and insights you have shared with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope we will reconvene sometime during the fall and continue the discussion in maybe another topic around board work by then. But for now, thank you so much, everyone, for participating, and wish you a great day and happy summer.
And a great summer. Thank you very much for listening.
Yes.
You too.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Bye.